Hello, Accounting One. I'm here today to talk to you about financial statements, and we're going to look at three different financial statements in this section. We're going to look at the income statement, the statement of changes in owner's equity, and your balance sheet. So when you complete these exercises for today and tomorrow, which would be Friday, I'm going to have you complete those three items. We will focus a lot on the income statement today, and I will create separate videos for your statement of changes in owner's equity and your balance sheet. So for today, let's focus on this, and if you can get far enough and go to do the statement of changes in owner's equity and the balance sheet, by all means, click on those videos and complete those exercises. These are pretty much notes related today. I will add some assignments in the sub-lesson plan if you feel comfortable in completing those. I guess for you, Derek, that doesn't mean comfortable. That means if you get done in time, you can go ahead and do those, because I know when you say, or I say comfortable, you probably will just be like, well, I was uncomfortable. And now you can all laugh and we can go back to our assignment. Ha ha ha. Okay, let's talk about what this is going to look like today and then what it's going to mean. So the first thing we need to do is you need to open up a spreadsheet, and we're going to create what this template should look like. If you also turn your books to page 197, that is the format I'm going to use. It's on page 197 at the top, and probably a few of you don't have your books out yet, so I'll give you a moment to do that, and you may want to pause the video because I'm just going to continue talking. That's the moment I gave you. Now I'm going to continue talking. So the first thing we want to do, just like in the worksheet, we want to label who, what, and when. So in order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and come up here and I'm going to merge these cells, and then see how that top one's merged. I'm going to click back on it and drag the fill handle down. Excuse me. So I can have three columns that are merged, and I should center them as well. As I'm talking about it, I'll go ahead and center them. And now they should be set up for me to put my information in. On the template of the income statement we're using, we are talking about repair it now. Income statement. 4-month ended. Whoops. July 31st, 2014. Okay, so we got that information put in. You'll notice that I did drag and merge across 4 cells because there's going to be 4 things we're going to put in. The next thing we're going to do, I did not put in that little hidden extra column over here, so my first column is going to be the names of the accounts and the headings. So before I put those in, I'm going to go ahead and drag this a little bit deeper, because I know the names are going to be longer than the information going in the other 2 columns. So the first thing we do here is we skip the first line, and we're going to come down to the second one, and we're going to put in our first heading. When you put in your income statement information, you always start with revenue, so, and you give it a title. And it starts at the left margin. So I'm going to call this revenue, and it has a colon, and that basically starts your revenue section of your income statement. So the next thing I will do, and I will indent these 2 items. If you double click in, I'm going to hit it 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that gives it a good indent. And I'm going to type in, they have sales, riding mowers, and they have, in the next one, 1, 2, 3, 4, oh, that was 1 too many. Sales, ooh, I wish I could autofill that. Push mowers. Okay, so having those 2, those are the only revenue they have. You could have more, you could have less. It would still look like this. And then you would hit enter to go to the next line, and we're going to put in total revenue. You'll notice that total revenue is indented as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. Total revenue. Okay. And then we'll plug all that information in here in a minute. I'm not going to do the numbers right away. I'm just going to plug in the names. After we have all of our revenue recognized, we're next going to move to our expenses. So I'm going to type in expenses. And I'll put a colon because that's just a heading. And what I like to do, especially if I'm doing it in a spreadsheet like this, I'm going to bold these headings so I can identify them and make them stand out a little clearer. We'll do some underlining over here in a second to identify some more things, but for now, we're just bolding that information. I'm going to hit pause for a second because my daughter's about to come in and into the house and she's going to make a lot of noise. So I'm going to pause. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. And there's a good chance you're going to hear my daughter and or my wife in the background. You may even see them run by. But let's go ahead and continue. We're going to add in our expenses. We do want to indent these as well. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to space in my 4 times. Hopefully it's close to 4 times because I'm going to zoom through these. So I'm going to enter all the expenses they have listed too. And I'll go ahead and let you do that now. I'm going to pause the video again and finish these expenses, and then I'll come back. If you want to pause it right now too, that would be great. And then that way we can save time in this video and you don't have to fast forward or anything like that. So I'm going to pause and add my expenses, and then I'll come back. Okay, I'm back. I've got my expenses plugged in. You'll notice as I've put my expenses in there in alphabetical order, just like we've always talked about, and I also have a total expenses as well. I've also put in a net loss here. Only because the book tells me I have a net loss. If you, in the future, when you complete these assignments, you will have to identify whether it's a net income or a net loss. So don't just assume when you put this together that it's going to be a net loss. Okay, let's talk about the numbers now. There are certain situations that happen depending on how many accounts you have, where your numbers go. So what you need to understand is this first column, this one right here. This column is called the math column or the addition column, and basically if you have multiple accounts you're going to use this to put your numbers in. Debit and credit rules don't apply here. Okay, now if it's a debit or a credit still matters, but this does not denote debit and this does not denote credit. We are doing simple math here, so we're just trying to find totals and then doing the difference to get our net income or net loss. So how that looks here, if you look in the textbook, it has 18,500 in the first amount, so I'm going to go 18,500. In the second amount, it is 2,700. And then we get a total. I really want you to get used to putting in formulas, so please go over here to AutoSum, click your sum button, select the 2, and hit enter. Alright, and now this is recorded, so if you didn't catch that, you can rewind and watch it again. I'm going to do the same thing down here for expenses. I'm going to go and plug in my expenses real quick, and I tell you what, I'm going to pause it again. I'll plug them in, that way you don't have to listen to me plug them in, and then I'll come right back. So here's another pause. Okay, I'm back. I've plugged in all my expenses. I didn't do the total because once again I wanted to show you the AutoSum feature. So I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to click my drop down sigma symbol. I'm going to click sum. I'm going to select the cells I want to total or add together, and after I've selected them I'll hit enter, and sure enough there's my total. One thing these numbers don't have are dollar signs, so I'm going to go ahead and select all of this information from here to here, and I'm going to go click on my money symbol, which is right here, format as currency. So there we go, we have our format as currency. The next thing we need to do is we need to identify our net loss in this case. And to do that, we're going to come down here straight across from net loss, right underneath total expenses, and we're going to subtract. What are we going to subtract? Your formula for this always looks like this. It's always going to be equals, and every formula starts with equals. You'll click on your total revenue minus, and then click on your total expenses, and you'll hit return or enter. And you should see, look here, it even says, shows a negative 2927. You'll notice in the book it's in parentheses. That's just a formatting option. You can go in and change that. I'm not going to be particular about that using this software. It's the process and the means that are more important to me than this actual thing right here. So net loss is what we came up with, and that is as simple as it is putting together an income statement. Now, one thing you might be asking yourselves is, well, where did those numbers come from? And you're going to like this, kind of. You're also going to be like, why did we move it over here? But this is to separate everything that was in your worksheet. So these numbers actually came from the income statement column of your worksheet. So if you're completing this exercise again in the future, these numbers come directly from the worksheet. Every last one of them. The only difference is we organize them in a different way. We're now going to show our revenues in one spot, our expenses in one spot, and then we're going to show some math by putting them in this column, and finding whether it's a net income or a net loss. One thing I do want to show you before we continue, or before I send you to the next type of financial statement that we complete, let's say there was only one revenue up here, this sliding or sales riding mowers, and we didn't have sales push mowers. This amount, this 18,500, would start over here. It would be in this area right here, and we wouldn't have this, we wouldn't have this, and we wouldn't even have a total revenue. All right, all of this would then be pushed up, and this number would be outside here, and then you would still do your math, and it would work out. Let's just see what it would be, just for kicks and giggles. It's going to be negative again. It's going to be even worse because we have less revenue. But we'll do, whoops, gotta get back there, equals this amount minus this amount, and enter. And there you go. So if you only had one revenue account, it would look something similar to that. You wouldn't have these extra two columns, or rows, I'm sorry, these extra two rows here. But that's basically what an income statement looks like. All right, we have one more thing to add in there. I'm going to do Command Z to get back to my normal numbers there. Whoops. I want to put my formula back in. I'll pause, put my formula in, and I'll come right back. Okay, so the next thing we want to figure out is a couple of ratios. If you're still on 196, 197, we have our income statement on the right-hand side, but on the left-hand side, you'll notice there's some ratios over there, and they're going to help us, or help you as an accountant, identify some quality information about your company. The one thing you're going to find out about this one is that it's performing poorly, and the net income alone, or net loss in this case, would tell you that. But let's see what percentages-wise, what the numbers might look like. So in order to find the expenses ratio, or the total expenses ratio, you're going to come over here and you're going to take your total expenses. So I'm going to do an equals. I'm going to click on my total expenses, and I'm going to divide by my total sales. All right, so total sales, where'd you go? There you go. And then I'm going to hit enter. And you'll notice that it has this big gargantuan number, and it's like 1.13806. Well, let's make that a percentage. Let's click on our percentage symbol. And it actually is 113.81%. All right, you can leave the 0.81 there. They show 0.8. So if you want to leave it at that, you can come up here and decrease decimal places, and that'll make that there. Up here at the top, I didn't put a formula in because this is total revenue or total sales, however you want to call it, is always 100% of total sales. There is no one way or another about it. The question is, what are total expenses in relation to total sales, and what is net income or net loss in relation to total sales? And that's what we're figuring out here, and we're going to try and decide how one helps the other. So we have 113.8% is expenses in relation to your sales, which is not good, because when this is over 100%, that means that obviously your expenses are greater than your revenue. Okay, you want this probably in a 50% range, give or take. And we'll talk about that here in a second. And the book's example it kind of hints around that. In the next column, we want to figure this out too. We want to know what the net income ratio is. So how much income are we making per sale that we make, and I'll explain that here in a second. So let's do the math first. We're going to put another formula in. We're going to hit equals, and we're going to take our net income. We're going to click on that, and then we're going to hit divide, and we're going to click on our total sales again. You hit enter, and again it brings up a funky decimal. Let's change that funky decimal to a percent, and I'm going to get rid of one of the decimal places again. So we have a negative 13.8%, which means in all essence we are making negative 13.8 cents per every dollar of sale we have. We're actually losing 13 cents on every dollar sold, or every dollar amount sold. Not good. Not good at all. So you think about the ratios and how you calculate profit and things like that, and whether you're making money. You really want this to be on the positive side. And if you look at the example they provide in the book on 196, they show you that there's a 45.7% ratio in your total expenses side. That's a pretty good number because if you look at it from